Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my Arrow episode 14 video, The Return. We also have details on next week's episode, Nanda Parbat, and 2 new characters, so I'll try to explain all that stuff. Just an update on the schedule. I know there's a lot of question because The Flash is going on break for 3 weeks, but next week is a new episode of Arrow, episode 15. After that, it'll go on break too, and then come back with The Flash. Okay, so just careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet, starting with top 5 moments. Number 5, Thea and Oliver train on the island. Didn't you notice how they were training with the Screama sticks, just like Slade taught Oliver to use them? Mark Guggenheim called the episode a love letter to the fans, so that's why they called back to so many familiar moments and locations on the island and in Starling. Didn't you also notice how there was a lot of explaining going on in this episode? It's like Oliver is speaking for the audience when he asks Thea how she got so good so fast. She's like, Merlin's a good teacher. Did he teach you how to cheat? Usually the supporting characters are the ones they give funny lines to like that, like Felicity or Diggle. It's like the show is telling us in no uncertain terms that whenever Thea is fighting, she's a main character. Like she's just as good as Oliver. Probably not true. She's probably better with a sword, but not a better fighter overall. Definitely more vicious though. On to number 4, Flashback Oliver goes back to Starling City. Seeing Team Arrow in Flashback was so much fun. Like Felicity almost brushes past him when he's stealing the data. Thea doing as many drugs as she can get her hands on. Laurel is a little bit more pessimistic. It looks like her romance with Tommy hadn't started yet. Tommy has actually taken on the Oliver role and is being like the big brother to everyone. And Quentin is an off-the-rails drunk. That bar that Laurel walked into and found him in, that's actually the same bar that he first met Sarah in whenever she first came back to Starling. There were so many familiar locations, like China White using the foundry to conduct her illegal sale. I think part of the reasons why they visited all these familiar locations is because they already built those sets, and it's cheaper for them to reuse sets than it is to build new ones. But in doing so, they're able to honor really big moments from the past in the show. It's just funny to think from a production standpoint, where it's like, you have this big love letter to the fandom, but it allows you to reuse a bunch of sets, so you save a bunch of money. High five to showrunner Mark Guggenheim and the production designer. On to number 3, Merlin wants Oliver to regain his killer edge. They buried the lead on this a little bit because they did end up killing Slade at the end. Merlin said, Argus was looking for a volunteer guard for the island. That means that Merlin flew all the way to the island, worked as a volunteer guard long enough to set up Slade's escape, or at least time it so that he escaped about the time that Oliver and Theo were arriving. A lot of you guys have asked me in the last couple of weeks if I think that Oliver's going to start killing people again. Obviously, this kind of sidesteps the issue. I kind of expected that's what they would do. They would find a way for Oliver to not throw his morals away. Really, the journey that Oliver's on this season is getting to that balance point where he can be both Oliver Queen and the Arrow. Because right now he's like, I can only be the Arrow. Oliver Queen can't exist. I can't be a normal person. That's how the whole mess with Felicity started. Thea, on the other hand, as Slade implies, is lost to him. Obviously, that's not true. She's totally going to come back at some point. She'll find that balance too. Thea and Merlin had that moment at the end where she's like, I'm going to do whatever you say, but you're dead to me. I'll never be your daughter again. One of my earlier theories is that Merlin is going to have to sacrifice his life in order to win back Thea's affection. Going through that experience might be a way to bring Thea back from that darkness too. That's just like an early finale prediction. That could always change depending on how the back half of the season goes. There's still a ton of episodes to come. Mark Guggenheim said it's going to get way crazier. But speaking of Killer Edge, probably my favorite flashback moment was when Oliver killed that drug dealer. Like, he didn't even hesitate, just crunch, threw him over the balcony. It's the easiest way to show how things have changed so much in that time span. It's like the Star Trek mirror universe in the flashbacks. Everybody has a lot more facial hair. They're like evil versions of themselves. They kill people. They get really dark. They're drunk. Speaking of which, we finally see Diggle's brother. I can't remember if we've ever seen Diggle's brother before. Somebody can let me know in the comments. I don't remember the last time we saw him. There are so many flashback moments that I could talk about. I'm going to actually put some of them in my Easter eggs in just a sec. On to number 2. Oliver watches his father's secret message. So when he almost gets caught by Felicity, he finds the message for Thea, for Oliver. I bet you we're going to see the Thea one pretty soon. His father died on the island, so he's kind of already gone through the grieving process. It's been a while since he died. This message is just like the next step in learning about the list and his first year as the vigilante. I failed this city, but you can save it. That's probably the best Easter egg for where the phrase, you failed the city, came from. Don't you just wonder though, what is in Thea's message? Does it have something to do with Merlin being her father? If Moira was smart enough to figure out that Oliver had been the Arrow the whole time, then Oliver's father totally knew Thea's secret. If you remember back to season 2 where they had that rift where Thea's like, I don't feel like part of this family. Oliver says, he might not have been your biological father, but he was your father. He's your family. The secret message will probably repair that relationship a little bit. Thea will slowly come back to the fold, but she'll become like the Speedy character. It'll be Speedy Thea. A lot of you have been asking me which comic book character I think that Thea's going to be. DC Comics posted a picture of Speedy, so she's going to be like the Speedy from the comics. Her backstory kind of works with that, with the drug abuse, but we can talk about that as her character develops across the back half of the season. And my number one moment, General Matthew Shreve introduces Creature Commandos to Arrow. So if you didn't recognize them at the end of the episode, that's Mark Singer. He's mostly known as being the Beastmaster, but he's done a bunch of other stuff. He is playing General Matthew Shreve, who's a character from the comics who led the Creature Commandos. They're like another version of the Suicide Squad, only with all metahumans. In the comics, they're actually led by Frankenstein, so I'm not expecting Frankenstein to come on Arrow anytime soon. They're going to be a big arc in the back half of the season, so that's where the Hong Kong flashback scenes are going to be going. They'll still be going after China White and the bioweapon, but now it'll be this team-based stuff going on. I don't think they'll directly do Creature Commandos. They probably won't call it that. They'll adapt it. They'll change it a little bit. Here's my big question for you guys. What was your favorite moment from the episode? And what do you think that Merlin is going to have to do to repair his relationship with Thea? Remember, he said family is the most important thing, so he's going to do whatever it takes to keep his family, quote unquote, together. Here's a bunch of the Easter eggs that I found in the flashbacks and in the present day Leanne Yu scenes. So one, the opening scene with Oliver and Thea training with the Scream Sticks, just like the scene where Oliver was training with Slade. But Slade taught Oliver to use the sticks, so Oliver trains Thea to use the sticks in an episode where they're back on the island that Deathstroke is also in. Oliver tells Thea, I've been back here before. He's talking about the island. Obviously, when we see him in episode 1, in the pilot episode, he has the Mega Grizzly Adams beard. That's after all the flashbacks are over. So between where we are right now in the flashbacks and present day, he's already come and gone from the island a couple times. Right now, Stephen Amell said they're about halfway through the flashbacks, so for every 1 year in present day, they only move about a half a year in the flashbacks. Whenever Quentin comes to the party to investigate the dead drug dealer that Oliver killed, his former captain says maybe there's a mystery vigilante going around town. Oliver's also wearing a green hoodie that looks exactly like Roy's old red hoodie. Maceo goes on to say that that's fooling no one. Anybody could recognize you in that, even if you smear your face in grease paint, which is what he does in present day all the time. That's why whenever you see Stephen Amell do his Q&A, sometimes he has those really blacked out eye sockets. That's the grease paint that he puts on. When Thea and Oliver are fighting Slade off, there's this moment where he twists him around. It looks just like the scene from the Flare-O crossover from Flash vs. Arrow when Oliver is yanking the arrow out of Barry's back. China White uses the Foundry to conduct her secret clandestine Armageddon sale. Then later she says, you make the call, the Yamashiros die tonight. That might be leading up to Maceo's son dying. That's why I think they had that falling out. Him and Katana, it seems like they hadn't been speaking in present day. Obviously something tragic happened, probably their son dying. We meet Mark Singer as General Matthew Shreve. Obviously I already explained the Creature Commandos from the comics. He's a lot of fun, so get really excited about that. And then really important thing, Oliver tells Thea not to tell Laurel about any of the Sarah murder stuff. It will unnecessarily complicate things, which is a total red herring. Of course she's going to find out. It's going to cause complete chaos in the group. It's like the rules of a horror movie. Anytime you say something you don't want to happen, it's guaranteed to happen. If you haven't seen it yet, they posted the teaser for episode 15, Nanda Parbat. Obviously, going to Nanda Parbat. But back in Starling, we're going to see the Atom suit for the first time.
Malcolm, he's going to face justice.
What have you done?
Welcome to Nanda Parbat.
You've spent years preparing to bring a bow and arrow to a sword fight.
I know some of you guys don't like spoilers, so I won't explain episode 15 too much, but it's pretty straightforward. Team Arrow goes to Nanda Parbat. Everyone that's involved with the Ray Palmer storyline, mostly Felicity, stays in Starling and gets involved in an Atom storyline. They also just announced they cast a new character, Doug Jones from Hellboy fame. He's done a whole bunch of creature work. He's going to be playing a character in episode 19 called Deathbolt. He will be a metahuman. It's a character from the comics. He has plasma discharge powers. It sounds like he's going to be a metahuman in the episode, but they haven't explained if he's going to be a metahuman that got his powers from the Star Labs accident or if he got his powers some other way. The name of that episode, episode 19, is Broken Arrow. If you've never heard it before, the term Broken Arrow is a military term. It refers to a nuclear weapon being lost. So when you're theory crafting about episode 19 stuff, just think about it that way. Something major, like a major weapon, gets lost. What major weapons have we been seeing in the flashbacks? What major weapon do we have in the present? Actually, in the present, it might not refer to a physical weapon. It might refer to a person, as in the arrow. So maybe Oliver is going to be broken somehow. So I will be doing a Q&A tomorrow. Be sure to subscribe to get that. I'm also wearing my like Stephen Amell Sincerely t-shirt. He's asking people to send them Sincerely videos, so I might make a Sincerely video too. While you guys wait for that stuff to drop, you can click here to catch up on The Flash this week, and you can click here to catch up on Gotham. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. High fives.